Good evening, dear viewers of Smart 24 TV. My name is Dr. Joseph Tindeba, back with you, and we come with something better than yesterday. And our package of our tonight program will be dealing with the merger of parastatal bodies, and in other ways, it is referred as rationalization of government agencies, and which is intending to focus on a number of issues that Ugandans, I believe, joined together through the planning process and the political debates, need to be resolved. Together with us, we are blessed and extremely humbled to be with our dear guest, the Honorable Abdullah Byakatonda, the Workers MP, and he has been our guest from time to time, but of these days, sir, we've been missing to have you so that we can discuss such matters of national importance to the viewers. Kindly greet the viewers.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph. The management of Smart TV. I want to thank you for the good job, especially on entrepreneurship and creation of awareness. I think this is yet another key aspect that we need to discuss with our viewers and have really, I think, see how we can cause change in this, create awareness so that we can actually have the best understanding of the subject at hand.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you and to be with you. And to the workers outside there, those who are unionized workers, those who are businessmen and businesswomen, we have our advocate in the parliament in a form of a registrator. And he is really aggressively doing good work. We appreciate for the conclusive, enactment of the bill, or especially the NSSF, and also the awaited, we are still waiting for the wage bill and other areas which you talked about last time. So our question tonight, we look at, is the government policy to emerge parastatal boards a drive to effective and efficient economic management? It is a question, and we are drawing this question from a long time, not too long, but since 2018, there is a process which was commenced by the cabinet. The public service and the Minister of Public Service presented a number of statements which are to have an insight and in-depth discussion on whether we should maintain 157 government agencies, which I'm not going to list here, but for purpose of the viewers to recall 157. And by the then time, his argument, and of which is today's argument, still remains that we need to have at least reduced from 157 agencies, and we drop down to 77. And maybe for the start, we go to 80 which are supposed to be retained. In his articulation that we'll be looking through, especially with our Honourable Member of Parliament, is to look at the areas of concern that he raises for purpose of maybe to benefit the country. He stated that by reducing and rationalizing agencies, it will reduce exorbitant, excessive public expenditure. And he continued to state that there are a lot of ambiguities for the last some years when they were created or established. He refers also to be able to utilize this approach as a way to tame the draining of the national treasury at the expense of effective service delivery. He went on to say that it overstretches the capacity of government-sustained agencies, and also it causes salary disparities between agency employees and traditional civil servants, leading to wastage of resources which would otherwise be committed for provision of services. And this statement was being drawn from the National Development Plan 3 from 2021, 24 to 25, under Chapter 20, Objective 2, Rationalization of Government Agencies in favor for service delivery. There have been a lot of debate going on in Parliament, and the latest was that of May, and of which we have divergent views. It is still under a study. We bring it to the public to understand whether in the political dimension of viewing through and the technical lenses, whether the rationalization of these agencies may add an economic value for Uganda. Together with us once again, it's a pleasure to have you, sir. I believe you have your analytical point of view these days. We are very happy that Parliament, you do serious work to make input into this, especially where we were able to be briefed that you do research to inform the public. So a pleasure to have you and give us your opinion.
Thank you, Joseph. I think besides being a member of Parliament, I am a consultant.
Thank you, sir.
I do organizational behavior and organizational development, job evaluation, and related consultancies. And by practice, I trained as a management specialist.
Oh, yes.
I've trained and worked as a human resource manager.
Oh, that's great.
I've done a lot of things. And I think I'm a social worker.
That's great.
I'm a development practitioner. And at other levels, I'm a behaviorist.
Thank you,
because I studied human behavior.
Thank you, sir.
I think we come in to really help guide our government.
Thank you, sir.
African governments have made a lot of fundamental mistakes. And I think, you see, most countries have decided not really to explore aspects of value addition, aspect of exploring into our minerals and manufacture. To imagine, I think, when you import, you're better off. Or when you contract out such resources, you're better off. And that has actually created a very big gap in terms of development. And that's why we lag behind. I think this time around, we need really to have clear vision, a clear strategy, and a clear understanding of what we do. In the early 80s, I think that was during the Bote II government. All we used to hear, we were young, but you could hear, imported goods are cheaper. So that, what did that mean? It meant really doing out with our industries that much as we were crippling, but I think we needed 20 hands. But industries were shut down and we started importing. This took the country to the extent of even using trees as an alternative for soap. You remember the scenario? It was Mayumba when people used to line for salt, lining for sugar.
It was terrible.
So I think these are the mistakes. In essence, we're supposed to look at industrialization. So when NRM came, I think they have tried to resolve that matter. The fact that I think, if you not actually recall what history is, then you may not know. And you may not actually have the clear vision and clear strategy. So now, we had the cooperatives, and we said, I think, the government closed and the cooperative. But now we're realizing, I think we needed the cooperative.
Yes, very much.
And I think now the subject you're hearing, revival.
It is a sales demand.
Revival of cooperatives, revival of cooperative. What was the consideration for, first of all, doing out with the cooperatives that we had? I think, I must say, there's a poor diagnosis. And whenever we are going to have a poor diagnosis, we are going to move in a vicious circle of poverty. I want to say that, one, most of these institutions, some of them were formed by a constitution. If I can recall, I think Article 237 formed some of the institutions, like when you look at the NSSF, I mean the national NFA, they were formed under that. And they were saying this should actually help us innovate, protect the forest and reserves and trusts for the people, do this, and a number of them. Me, I think my challenge is that I like being truthful. And the principles say, do unto others
what
how do you like done unto you.
To you. That's right. It is even religious.
But I think when we get into leadership positions, we tend to forget. You'll find that people who are doing in government have ever been unemployed at one period or the other. But they forget. You find somebody was actually miserable, but now they have forgotten. I think we should be able to learn history. Well, recently, His Excellency said history is very important because it can help us forge a way forward. I think it's important. Now, suffice to mention, when you are doing the mergers. Government is one of the ILO constituents, and it has ratified a number of conventions. One of such conventions that bars and guides those such mergers, Convention 158, and then Recommendation 166. These are very fundamental. And you find that in doing so, we should really look at certain parameters. And you find that the Constitution of Uganda, under Article 29, 1E, it gives us right to assemble, right to forming unions. Then when you look at Article 40, Clause 3, it does the same. And then when you look at Article 24, the right to equal pay, the right to what, all these are very key. So you will find that in doing this, one, we have not actually followed the procedure. Because one, in doing this, you need to look at the key stakeholders. Who are they? Have we defined the stakeholders? And what does the law entail? So you'll find that, one, a number of ministries must be into play. We are looking at the Ministry of Gender, we are looking at the Ministry of Public Service. I think finance should tell us what are the financial implications and a number of entities. Let's actually put all these at play to see that at least we manage. You'll find that in doing this, we must actually engage all the workers' representation. And most of these entities are formed under certain declarations. We have a number of relevant stakeholders like partners. But of course, I must say all these have not been consulted. I once said that whenever you are doing an assessment of something, and we basically just look at financial, you are bound to make mistakes. I think where we have had such an aspect of getting something based on finances are companies like Walmart, Microsoft, Apple, and others, you can name them. We call them the fortune companies. But even when they're global, when they did that, they realized, I think it was not right. There are companies whose missions are not supposed to be financial. And I think they really looked at, so that's when they started actually making evaluation. And they're looking at a 360-degree evaluation. So I must say, one, there are a lot of lacunas
in this process.
In the process. It is ill-intentioned. It is biased and devoid of any logic. And I want to tell you, I'm here. We do it, but within 1 year, we shall have actually dwindled and we shall need to revert to the current situation. Now, an institution like Uganda AIDS Commission, it comes in as a result of a lot of partnership, a lot of protocol. And of course now, they would even saying, I think Uganda, the fight of HIV in Uganda, had actually, I think His Excellency the President even got, I think, awards, you do recall. And Uganda was really praised for having curtailed HIV. So what is that we know? That we have actually managed it. Now, you look at the Paris Declaration on, for example, climate change. You look at the Rio Conventions. All these are now issues that Uganda has ratified. And you'll find that even there are constitutional provisions. Then some of them are established by an act of parliament, with a very clear vision, very clear intention, and which is very glaring that it can actually be a very good institution. But how do we evaluate? Have we empowered these institutions to its capacity? You'll find that right from the time of inception, they have never had the human resource requirements even up by half. And they have remained at either 40%. Then when they make a strategic plan, we want to do this and maybe make money like this. Even the man, I think they have never, at times, half or below. So now, when we do that, I think we are making a mistake. I want to say that we need to benchmark for better practices. For example, Tanzania, I think in the recent past, what I've known, they started by really enhancing their regulatory bodies. And you find that now, one of those regulatory bodies is they are doing cashew nut planting. And cashew nut is now, globally, we are looking at 12 million metric tons per annum globally. And the producing countries are now Nigeria, Tanzania, India, America, and others. But they are only producing 4 million metric tons, leaving a deficit of 8 million metric tons. Uganda is known for this crop. Why don't we now say, let's now use an institution? Because guess what? We are saying the money we are saving is 650 billion.
650 billion.
That's 600.
If we
regularize over 8 entities.
8 entities.
Entities.
650 billion.
650 billion.
For every year.
Every year. That is money which one entity can make. Ask me how.
That's where.
Yes, let's now go use NFA, tell them let's actually do casino to grow. Because the government has even come up with high value crops. They are talking of macadamia nuts, they are talking of cashew nut, they are talking of oranges, they are talking of fish, and a number of them. Then, of course, engage in two value addition. But the mistake now, these are people we have trained.
Honorable, yes? I'm going to be going with you. I gave you time to give us,
yes.
The well-founded information that is addressing into this subject matter of our tonight's discussion.
Yes.
And I appreciated the way you referred to some of the mistakes that were committed, especially during the time, like some of the economic policy actions, the days of Amin, when there was an economic war, all those kind of messes we went through that led us to the economic recovery over time. But now drawing to the point of where we are, and with a number of initiatives that the government, policy initiative the government is expected to look at, I'm going to be putting on two faces. The other side, which is either for, and also which is not for, against, pro, and also the anti-one. So that finally we're able to maybe, since it is okay that there's already a debate, a discussion going on in the parliament, you never know the way we may strike a deal, and not a deal for our benefit, but for the benefit of the country, where maybe we may either accept that something needs to be done better than what we have. Number one, we've got the dimension of these agencies and look whether it is necessary to maintain, this is what we're explaining, to maintain all of them, 157. Whether there is a slight review, what I was able to get from you and for purpose of the viewer, there's a need of insightful review,
yes.
A feasibility, a steadfast, analysis, which can give us maybe a standing point. But after that, also want to widen it to the political formation, the ministries, the districts, because the rationalization, I do believe, as I bring about this topic on our table, if Uganda, we are to benefit the citizens for service delivery, something needs to be done. I refer to the words of Professor Mutevile, the late, may his soul rest in peace, 2011, he stated, when he was giving his statement in a time of crisis of inflation, he said that one of the challenges that was the root cause of economic challenges of the then time was because of too much public expenditure. It goes, these agencies created many agencies with a high pay of salary. You go to government, you have 89 ministers. You go to how many RDCs? They are over 200 or 300. They are over 280 as per district. They are RDC and deputy. You go to the districts, every other time they are being divided. So the rationalization, I want to look at the technical, this one for departments, government agencies, but we also see the rationalization. If we are to be sincere with ourselves, we look at how we have done it also politically. The constituencies, those which were around 270 by the time either of 2000 or 1995, and we go back, as you say, that some mistakes committed around 1962 and maybe early 80s when we went into elections, we were over around 37 constituencies. To have increased, I agree, because of population, I agree, but now we are talking about representation to 557. So we need to take care to look, that is an opinion I would like to present, to look at what should be done to reduce also excessive public expenditure and allocate these resources for service delivery. What is your take on both?
Well, one, I think as men, we live for bread, but institutions live of their culture. Culture is very important. But I think before I look at the aspect of culture, there are matters of law in this aspect. I think what we are looking at When you look at, for example, one of the laws, the Public Service Negotiating, Consultative and Distributed Settlement Machinery, the thing is not supposed to be bottom up, it's supposed to be bottom up, not top down. What am I saying? The procedure. We are supposed to make a consultative process, and then it's here we handle the process. And then we are supposed to handle institution on a case by case. For example, if we looked at, of course I've seen, when you look at the 8 affected institutions, if you looked at Public Service Commission, if you looked at Health Service Commission, if you look at Education Service Commission, what's their mandate? Recruitment and making competent staffing. Those ones, I think you can look for modalities.
Can't you have no Public Service Commission one?
Those ones you can look at ways of merging. Yes? Yes. But now, most of these institutions are very relevant. For example, if today somebody came and said, you sell to me an FA,
National Forces.
It will make money even and double our national budget. And I think that's what I'm telling you.
How does it happen?
It will happen. When somebody buys it, he will come and tell them, okay, what's the biggest competitive advantage? The skilled staffing. What's the competitive advantage? The forest reserves. The infrastructure. Then he will start by actually raising cashew nuts. He will start actually raising high-value crops. Then he will be one of the biggest people and actually shall actually be offended even. He can even now triple our budget, our national budget. So we need to do things differently. And I think we need to have people who have business acumen in the management.
So your argument, you're saying we can turn around these agencies as productive hubs.
Yes.
Industrial hubs.
And let's empower them. Let's give them the capacity, and then we can actually move. Let's look at an institution like UNRWA. Now, let's say within next 5 years, we shall not have external experts. We shall not have to contract our work. Let's build the capacity and ensure that at least our roads are made within our engineers. Then we build the capacity. Because this in a merger situation, you look at two things. It is a merger and acquisition. But I'm telling you, they are not even prepared. I'll tell you that already people are grumbling. The people of REA, they are saying, hey, we promised you are being taken the ministry, but again, they are putting in new people. So you are seeing mafiasm in this because people are interested in absorbing their selfish interest. I think that's very fundamentally very wrong.
It's not the face of which some...
No, it is not. Actually, some of them are saying, when an FA goes, I'm going to knock down one forest reserve. I'm going to do this. It will be mine. I will own this. So these are I think they are ill intentions. So I think in terms of articulating the vision and clear and being transparent and I think communicate clearly, it is one thing. And I would like to urge, I think, government to go slow on this. Because I think we benchmark for good practices. India has done it. But of course, they realized later it was not proper. America had to put $5.5 billion to handle that exercise. But then later, I think, and it was even in a phased manner. It is something which took, I think, over a decade.
So ours is not well-informed?
Not a well-informed decision. There is no benchmark. There are no good practices.
There is no comparative policy analysis.
There is no stakeholder engagement. So you find that everything is done haphazardly.
We hope those who are
and of course,
they will take it up.
This has far-reaching effects.
Yes, sir.
Government is one of the biggest employers worldwide. So if a government cannot actually sustain employability alongside all the dire situations that institutions have faced, then you just come and say, you must actually study, what is it that we require to do? How have they been operating? What have been their challenges? How do we move to better these institutions? Can we incorporate the component of research and development, R&D? And when we do that, where do we go? The opportunities. I think we need to subject all this to a very clear SWOT analysis. And when we do that, then we can actually see that at least compared to the merger, I think we would rather do ABC.
Honorable, yes. I'm understanding you very well, and the viewers also, as we are following, will be coming back in the next few minutes after our commercial break. But there are, well, as I do, yes, indeed acknowledge your well-articulated points in justification of how much needs to be done, and the level of consultation, which so far has been minimal, and the critical understanding of this policy reform based on benchmarking, research, and surveys. All of that, I believe, is very much important. And also for seeing the effect. I believe it is an analytical and philosophical, search of what expected to be done. But as we'll be coming back, there is also still an unresolved question, and which is amongst the population, especially continuing to see some of these parastatal bodies, the agencies, much as, there cannot be, these fingers cannot be, never be the same. But the way, how the height of this one is too far is really look to be too much. And the last finger is complaining, you are too taller than me. I'm talking of the salary disparities. And finally, which feeds into a lot that the government is putting, especially to invest and to involve in payment of such salaries. Stay tuned on Smart 24 TV. We'll be coming back to have an explanation on how we can be able to solve or to foresee also that problem, have an insight into it, and we can have a better Uganda.